So after about, half an hour of refreshments and, people talking, I finally went into the new dinosaur hall and started looking around, and it was everything I could have imagined. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it was just kind of, took my breath away when I first stepped in, saw the big Triceratops, saw the big Momenta Soros and whatnot, and, on the spot I'd kind of come up with this, cheesy little intro that would have worked a lot better if I did shoot, more footage inside the hall, so you'll just have to settle for its random juxtaposition here. Alright everyone, here we stand on the threshold of the new dinosaur hall. Prepare to take a step with me to the wondrous beyond. Don't stop that doorway! Yeah, corny, I know, but, I gotta do something to keep your guys' interest and, put on a show. But knowing YouTube and their Nazi-esque copyright enforcement, they'll probably mute this video just for that little clip. But, fuck them, I hate them. But anyway, that's beside the point. The new dinosaur hall, well, as I previously mentioned, it was awe-inspiring, rather. I mean, it's undoubtedly well worth the wait, the 3 years that I've just been sitting around anxiously awaiting it. And yeah, just puts their old dinosaur hall to shame. Because, it was dark. They didn't really have a lot of just those raw fossils, the actual fossils. They had just a bunch of, cast skeletons up. A lot of them just the static positions. Not a whole lot of information to go with them. Just, little blurbs here and there. And, it was still the largest display of dinosaurs on the West Coast, but it was just kind of stale, Not like the Smithsonian was any better. I mean, God, theirs is even worse shape, but that's for another time. Let's see what to talk about first. Give me a moment to think about what to talk about first. So here's an interview. Alrighty then, I see your tag said artist.
Yes.
What role does an artist play in an exhibit of this magnitude?
Oh boy. Well, there's a lot of the material that you'll see in here. It's real, but there's nothing that's ever been collected that's 100% complete. So part of my job is to reconstruct missing anatomy. Some of that anatomy is really loose, so you might look at the baby T-Rex that's in the exhibit in the T-Rex tableau.
Yep.
And everything behind the skull is been reconstructed by myself, based off of a lot of different reference and a lot of empirical data, but also just some mathematical models and basically a lot of guesswork. There's nothing really to go on. There are other things like the Momenta Soros skull, where I had a good scientific illustration to follow. The Frutodens I also had a lot of great reference for, and that's a life reconstruction, which is a little bit different. And also I can go in and put my 2 cents into what I think the animal would have looked like based off of a lot of experience just drawing animals and working with other specimens and other sculptures.
Alright, pretty good. I know I hope to take sculpting someday and apply that to paleontology, because in fact Howell Thomas gave me his card, said he put me in contact with Larry Barnes so that we could do a reconstruction of Aladesma someday. Got any words of advice?
Okay, well, you're going to want calipers, dividers. You're going to use measuring tools more than anything.
Yeah, my grandpa always said, cut once, measure twice.
Yes, cut once, measure twice, and learn if it's a big animal, if you're doing a 1-to-1 scale, if you're not scaling down, you're going to want to use foam. Foam is light, you can carve it, you can fix it, and you don't have to commit to it. If you're doing a lot of clay sculpting and mold making, prepare to spend a lot of money on it, because you need a good mold to make a good copy. If you're doing bronze, you need a lot more money.
Metal ain't cheap.
Metal is not cheap, and foundry work is very, very hard work.
Except that sheet iron I find at the hardware store.
Yes, that's right. That's always cheap.
And here comes the brain-melting brain teaser.
Sure.
What's your favorite specimen in the exhibit?
Oh, it's not so difficult because I worked with it so long. It's Thomas, and I was on a lot of the digs, and I was lucky enough to be on the digs excavating Thomas, and also
I am glowering with envy.
and I also prepared a large part of Thomas. I worked on Thomas while it was here, and then it left to get mounted, and then of course it came back mounted by Phil Fraley Productions, and seeing it there is just a really great, nice feeling. Just a culmination of many years and a lot of just hours of work and connection with the people who also were alongside. We were just digging this thing out of the ground while you're losing your mind in the middle of a quarry in 120 degree heat. It's great, like to see it up there mounted and you're like, wow, I have no idea how that happened. And it's 5 years later. It's done.
All right, one last question. How does it feel to be a part of, constructing the largest dinosaur exhibit in the Western U.S.?
In the Western U.S., is that a fact? I would say that it feels like I am on top of the world, of course, but it's definitely a landmark for anyone involved, and it's just a feeling of great achievement, and I look forward to doing more. I'm not done, I'm not burnt out, I want to do more.
Yep.
So it gives me the fuel to do more of my own work, and I will say I produce my own work, very highly anatomically correct scientific models, and I think that's where I'm going to go from here, probably.
Again, I glower with envy.
Ah, there we go.
All right,
Cool.
Thank you very much. I'll email you a link.
Great, thank you.
Good stuff. That was probably my longest interview, though I think the one with Stephanie and Paige probably went longer, but we'll see. Anyway, first coming in, you see this big Triceratops, and they found parts of this Triceratops in 2 different states, Montana and Wyoming, and it's what's called a composite skeleton. A composite skeleton is basically a mounted skeleton that is made up of parts of several individuals. So this isn't just one animal, this is actually 4 animals. There's parts from mainly 3 Triceratops and 1 bone from a 4th animal. And, that's not as exciting as, finding a, whole Triceratops that's just bones from all one animal, but we've never found that. The only ones who come close are like Kelsey, Clef, and Raymond, but even they're still pretty incomplete. But still, 4 animals, that's actually really astonishing, at least if you're a paleontologist. So to help put into perspective how special that is, the American Museum of Natural History, their Triceratops is composed of bones from 12 individuals. That's already 3 times the amount of individuals that the LA Triceratops has, and pour it on even more, the Smithsonian's Triceratops has bones from over 30 individuals. Over 30 individual Triceratops went into that one skeleton. So having a Triceratops that is really mostly composed of parts from 3 animals plus just a bone from a 4th is really unprecedented. And again, because I didn't get to enjoy the exhibit, I didn't see all the info they had surrounding it, but what I read in anticipation of the new hall said that this Triceratops display would have maps of the quarries that it was found, because a big goal of this exhibit is transparency. They want to really just show you the science of dinosaurs, studying the Mesozoic era, how we know what we know, how we explore it, all that sort of stuff. And a good example of that, I think, was the Momenta Soros. And what I loved most about the Momenta Soros was just, it had the right head finally. A little bit about that, because the Momenta Soros in the old dinosaur hall, was big, impressive, but it was behind this, it was like 15 feet behind this railing. It was just tucked back against a wall. Not only that, but its tail was dragging. We know sauropods didn't drag their tails, but this one's tail was just dragging, just... And also it had the wrong head on it, because I guess at the time the LA Museum mounted their skeleton we didn't really have skull material from Momenta Soros, and they assumed that it was, you know, related to Diplodocus, and so they gave it a Diplodocus-like skull. They modeled its skull after Diplodocus. Well, then they found a few skull fragments from Momenta Soros, but more importantly, they found a good skull from a closely related animal called Euhelopus, and Momenta Soros and Euhelopus are now in a group called Euhelophids. And so for this new haul, Doyle, as we just met, he sculpted a new skull for it, and it just looks fantastic. And I actually, I don't know, I just think it's a much cooler looking skull than the skull of a Diplodocid, and because I don't know, I never really just clicked with Diplodocus' skull. I don't know why. I just thought like Camarasaurus or Momentasaurus looked cooler. And so that was really neat, and it is, you really get a better appreciation of its size and the span of its skeleton by being able to walk all around it, to be able to stand at least underneath the neck, underneath the tail, stand right up against it. And like I say, it just gives you this greater appreciation of its size and its majesty. And I don't know if it's intentional or not, but there's a really great display about the size range in dinosaurs kind of centered around that Momentasaurus skeleton, because beneath its neck, it's got its neck outstretched. You can see there's the Triceratops, which is a big dinosaur, but obviously it's not the biggest, you know, because it's got the big sauropod behind it. But walking amongst, you know, in the footsteps, literally, of this giant skeleton are these little models of a little dinosaur called Frutidens that was discovered not too long ago by the museum in, you know, Fruita, Colorado, hence the name Frutidens. And is a little two-legged plant eater that lived during the Jurassic period, so would have walked in the footsteps of other Jurassic sauropods like Camarasaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, not necessarily Momentasaurus, because Momentasaurus lived in China, but currently Frutidens is the smallest dinosaur in North America. And it's like the size of a hare or a large rabbit. You know, it's not very big. And that, I just like that contrast. You have this little tiny dinosaur in the footsteps of this really big dinosaur. Just shows you the great variety of sizes that dinosaurs experience, because we think of dinosaurs as big, you know, big, although they try, they're still not the biggest thing ever. You know, obviously whales are bigger than dinosaurs, especially blue whale, and whales do count, all you dinosaur nuts out there. But that's beside the point. But, you know, the truth is, a lot of dinosaurs were small, very small, as Frutidens so wonderfully illustrates. Alright, now I want to show you one of my favorite parts, probably my favorite part of the exhibit, but first, how about another interview?